What is up, Scrub fam? Pat here, back with the last part of our Draftbox 5 Divine Multiverse limited review. Today we're going to be talking about the black cards as well as the multicolor cards. Before I jump into this video, guys, if you've missed any of the previous parts, I will link them as always down in the description below. And then on top of that, we got to give a shout out to the sponsor, Alec Pastrana over at beardedcollectibles.com. If you guys are still sleeping on buying Draftbox 5 product, you need to get on it, man. Those cards are really, really good for competitive play once competitive play actually resumes. I can guarantee you a lot of the high-end super rares will definitely be used at the highest level. So definitely check out Bearded to try to get those cards on the cheap. And with that out of the way, let us jump right into our review. So the first card I want to talk about is Son Goku, Strength of Legends. He is a 9-cost, 35k. The permanent is largely irrelevant. You can only have one copy in your battle area because it's a super rare. You'll never really have more than one. And it can't evolve basically into Victory Strike. So this was made with Constructed in mind. Perhaps they thought that this would be too easy to get into play. He has Activate Main if you have at least one Mono Red, Mono Blue, Mono Green, and Mono Yellow card in your drop area. And 4 or more energy, you can play him for free from your hand. And then he has an Activate Main of one of each color. Switch this card to Active Mode. It gains Critical, Double Strike, and Dual Attack. So here's the rub. This is what we call a build-around card in Draft. And it's definitely something that you are trying very hard to construct your deck around, and it's very difficult to get this card to do what it's supposed to do. The high end of this card is, a 35k with, some serious keywords on them that can basically end the game out of nowhere with a huge stat total. So yeah, that's all really well and good. The biggest problem with Goku though is that getting this realistically in Draft is very difficult. There's a couple of like green utility cards such as Rosie that will help you if you're trying to play like a say like a red-blue color. You might be able to splash some yellow, some green cards to make this happen, but it's just not going to be consistent at the highest level unless you just open some serious dual color cards that make it possible to have the energy, as well as some utility cards that are not really color restricted, like I said, such as Rosie. So I think that as high as Goku's highs are, he's most of the time just going to be relatively mediocre. So for that reason, I'm going to give him a 6. I think that you could do much better than this card in Limited. So next up, we have Saiyan Shield Son Gohan. He is a 3-cost 10k, which is not the greatest stats, actually pretty bad. He has Counterplay and Counterattack to play this card. He has Deflect, so you can't really stop him. He has Burst 5. When you play this card, activate this skill. Until the start of your next main phase, you only take 1 damage from Double Strike, Triple Strike, and Quadruple Strike. If you guys have heard us say anything here in the 3xG, our 3xG content here, we always say you want to try to play to win the game, not lose the game. This card is really lackluster, even for a rare. I think it's one of the worst rares you could open in the entire set. It has a really lackluster skill set. It doesn't really replace itself. It's really expensive in terms of its cost for what it does. And you're basically playing a card that just says you don't lose the game. So yeah, I think that Krillin at best is a 4. It is a sideboard card, and I probably would not play it. So next up, we have Vegeta, Strength of Legends. He is a 5-cost 30k, which is a great stat line. He has Dual Attack and Double Strike, which when you have a 30k base body is really serious. He has this ability where if you have one of each color energy, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and send it to its owner's warp. And then he has whenever he attacks, draw a card. So he is going to draw you 2 cards every turn. He is huge. He has Double Strike. He has Dual Attacks. This guy's presenting 4 damage a turn, which is actually even better clock than some cards like Rebrand, which is ridiculous. And then he gets you draw you 2 cards. You guys have heard me say hand sizes are really low in Draftbox 4 and Draftbox 5 format because the leader has critical. So anytime you can get a draw source, that's great. This guy is draw on a stick with some serious muscle to boot. The Activate Main will almost never come up, but if it does, it's just icing on the cake. I think Vegeta is a fantastic rare, and for that reason, I'm going to give him a 9. I would snap pick him almost always over almost anything in any pack, unless you open like a 10 in the same pack as him, which is rare, I think, because most of those cards are basically, a super rare. Basically, if you open Vegeta, the only like competition for the slot is probably Obuni. You should just snap pick this guy. He's too hard to beat. Next up, we have Dark Magician Girl. She is a 6-cost, 2,000 attack monster with 1,700 defense. She is a spellcaster with this card gains 300 attack for every Dark Magician or Magician of Black Chaos in either player's graveyards. So this is a 1 attribute monster that has a really poor stat line. and on top of that, it requires you to have Dark Magician or Magician of Black Chaos in your graveyard for her to do actually anything. And those cards are not in Draft Box 5. So for that reason, I have to give Dark Magician Girl a 1. It sucks too because like she has such good artwork. It's also a travesty that they censored this for the US audience. What is wrong with Konami, honestly? Next up, we have Grave Titan. He is a 6-cost giant with 6/6 for his stats. He has Death Touch, and whenever Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, put 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. So this card is very similar to Vegeta Strength of Legends in that it is a serious clock. He has some serious muscle. Yes, he doesn't draw you cards, but he has something I think is far scarier, which is inevitability. The turn you play Grave Titan, you get the huge Death Touch body, and on top of that, you're going to get 2 like smaller attackers in these 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. And every single turn that he attacks, he's going to put 2 more 2/2 zombie tokens onto the board. If your opponent does not have the counter spell or the removal spell, the turn you drop Grave Titan, he takes over the game, and he is nigh unstoppable. So for that reason, I'm going to give Grave Titan a high 9. He is basically a snap pick, especially since he's black, so a lot of decks can play him. So next up, we have Sephiroth. He is a 4-cost black 10,000 one-winged angel. You can only play Sephiroth if both players have received at least 4 or more damage. So basically, you have to be at half-life or less. Someone has to be at half-life or less. When he enters the battlefield, you get to choose any one of your opponent's cards and discard it, which is really, really powerful. And then, of course, if you are lucky enough to have a second copy in your sealed pool, you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, one of their energy, and one of their field spells and remove them from the game. Of course, you can only use this though when somebody has taken at least 5 damage in a game. It's a really, really powerful card, and honestly, it's really, really pushed. I honestly can't believe that they made this card. It's so powerful. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give Sephiroth a high 9. He should be a snap pick. Again, you'll never really get to use Octaslash because it's super rare. Odds of you pulling 2 super rares in a box are pretty much slim to none. But this card is still just insane even in its own right. So next up we have Chakra Paper. It is a 0-cost mission with 1 hand cost, and you get to apply the following effects according to the symbols of the card you discarded from your hand when you played it. If you discarded a fire card, you get to mill your opponent 4 cards. If you discarded a water card, you get to move the top card of your deck to your chakra area, which is pretty good ramp. If you discard an earth card, your opponent randomly discards 1. If you discarded a wind card, you get reimbursed a card, which is, I guess, alright, because you can play this on the first turn of the game, so it's a cantrip. And then also, obviously, if you discard a lightning card, you get to pump one of your guys by a small stat boost, which is kind of weak. But the best part about Chakra Paper is that it's basically a black card that you can play in any deck, and it's very versatile in what it does. And honestly, I think every deck can benefit from it. It is definitely playable. It's not great, but for that reason, I'm going to give Chakra Paper a 6. So next up we have Imposter Professor Oak. When you play this card, your opponent shuffles his or her hand into her deck and then draws 7 cards. This card is absolutely terrible. I have no idea why you would ever want to play this card in your deck. Giving your opponent a fresh hand of 7 cards no less is like just catastrophic. Again, both players usually have a 3 or 4 card hand most of the game. You're basically discarding that and giving them a fresh 7, which lets them dig deeper for their bombs and so on and so forth. There's almost no reason to ever play Imposter Professor Oak unless you really feel like helping your opponent win the game. So for that reason, I'm going to give Imposter Professor Oak a 1. Next up, we have the Ace of Spades. Anybody who's played any card game before already knows how powerful this card is. I don't think it really needs an introduction or an explanation of why it's good. It's good and constructed, so obviously it's going to be really, really good here in Limited. So for that reason, I got to give the Ace of Spades a 10. It is a classic card, and it has been reprinted millions of times at this point, so you guys should already know why this card is good. So moving on to the multicolor cards, let's talk about the Wild Draw 4. This is basically a game-ending card that goes in any deck. It's unstoppable. Just like the Ace of Spades, whenever you play the Wild Draw 4, you should just basically win the game because you should be calling a color that will let you stabilize or set up a game win. It's nearly unstoppable. The only card that counters it in the game is also another Wild Draw 4. So for that reason, we have to give the Wild Draw 4 a 10. It's just absolutely busted. It's one of the most busted cards I've ever seen, and honestly, I don't know why they printed this card. Next up, we have Valentina, the Crumbling Illusion. She is black, blue, and 5 for a Wanderer Resonator. She has Will of Despair, which is kind of an irrelevant keyword. She does cost 1 colorless less though for each battle card that is in your drop area, which is really good. And every turn you get to play a battle card from your drop area, which is obviously a very, very powerful effect. Left unchecked, Valentina can basically run away with the game. The only problem is that it is really difficult to get her online super quickly, and she's not as good as a card like Shieldred Whispering One, which has the effect of not only getting a battle card back from your drop area every turn, but your opponent chooses one of theirs every turn and puts it into the drop area. Shieldred was basically a limited all-star in the format that she was in. I think Valentina is a much more balanced version of that card. That said, she is really powerful. The only downside to her, doesn't have barrier, so she can get removed the turn you play her. So she is super susceptible to removal. But if a turn goes by and they don't answer Valentina, you basically are just going to win the game on the spot. So I'm going to give Valentina the Crumbling Illusion a high 8. I think she is really, really good for a rare. Next up, we're going to talk about Mega Awoken Goddess of Power, Dark Kali. She is a dark green element god with 2 bind resist, 3 S pluses, a skill bind resist, and then 3 7 pluses, obviously, for her awakens. Those are really, really strong awakens, and she's obviously a very rare card to pull, being a Godfest exclusive. The best part about Kali is her skill, Rising of the Orbs. She reduces unmatchable orbs by 5 turns. That's kind of irrelevant. And then she obviously removes locks on orbs, which is good, but not great. But the meat and potatoes of this card is that she changes all orbs to all attributes as well as hearts, which is excellent because what that means is that it's going to change your energy into rainbow. You get 1 of every color, basically, when you activate this skill. That means that she's super, super good with cards like Vegeta, Strength of Legends, and Goku, Strength of Legends. And honestly, every single deck I think could benefit from her. Her stat pool is absolutely insane. Your opponent can't really react to her at all because of the 2 bind resist awakens. There's nothing they can do to stop her. And she's just basically going to run away with the game with that high attack stat, high HP stat, and unparalleled utility. So of course we're going to have to give Dark Kali a 10. She's absolutely fantastic. And our final card is Narmaya. Narmaya is a draft samurai. She has these pretty good normals. So you see here, she has the far-reaching 5M that covers about a third of the screen. Same with 5H. And in Genji stance, she has Setsuna, which is a pretty good zoning tool that will allow you to kind of, stop your opponent's fireball game. It basically mitigates the removal they have, which they don't have that much of in limited. She also has really nice ways to get in with this teleport and to cross up and things like that. So yeah, really, really strong options. Obviously, she doesn't really have too much of a home in Constructed because that's where Fairy and Catalina dominate. But I think the best part about Narmaya is her corner pressure and corner combo game, which is really, really good in Limited because, as you guys know, your opponent doesn't have too many options. It's not as consistent as Constructed. So it allows you to get some really high damaging combos that your opponent can't really react to or deal with. So yeah. There's not really much to say about Narmaya. She's really fun to play in Limited, and honestly, I think she's just a solid 10. I don't see why you wouldn't pick her up. She's not as good as some of the other 10s, but she is a slam dunk win, and there's really not much else to say about her. So there you go, guys. That is it for the black cards and the multicolor cards here, and that wraps up our Draft Box 5 Limited review. See you guys again for Draft Box 6 as well as Series 10 whenever that comes out. As always, guys, make sure that you stay safe. And, leave us a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And let us know what you want to see next time. Bye-bye!